Good afternoon, this is vk3sl. Test missions on 160 metres, narrowband FM mode. Welcome to the playpen. This is where the pseudo-ambitions, casting ambitions, are not fulfilled. It's, yes, an act of some sort of juvenile delinquency, but we maintain our presence at this time, in this place, and it's sort of here because it's here. What other disclaimers? Oh yes, I should mention that it's nothing to do with entertainment. We're not entertaining under any circumstances. This is purely test missions, but there is a streaming service if you feel more inclined to sit back and relax. That can be found on my QRZ page. There's a link, and also there is a YouTube presence now. So you can find under my call sign a channel dedicated to the missions, to these afternoon missions and also evening missions as well. Well, tonight we're going to feature another Beethoven symphony. We just heard the second movement, this molto vivace scherzo movement from number 9, but now we're going to have a listen to his symphony number 7. This is off an old Columbia tape, half-fidelity tape. Now this tape broke as I was spooling it. It was wound on backwards and it needed to be re-spooled, and it popped, so I used a bit of super glue. Don't tell anybody. But I'm hoping it didn't sort of bleed through and stick a whole lot of tape together. So we'll see what happens. We may be in for a bit of a mess at some point. So fingers crossed, and that's the nature of things. We work on the seat of our pants. We wait for things to go wrong. It's been one heck of a week of discovery and non-discovery and sort of time wasting here, but it makes me feel like I'm doing something important. All right, let's have a listen to Symphony number 7 in A major, opus 92, the Philharmonia Orchestra conducted by Herbert von Karajan. This is VK3SL testing. This is a test transmission from vk3sl. This is vk3sl. We're listening to a recording of Beethoven's Symphony No. 7 in A, Opus 92. Recording with the Philharmonia Orchestra with Mr. von Karajan. Record made in the late 1950s, released on Columbia, high-fidelity tape. So we're giving the Q-Master 77 a run tonight. One of the ideas behind these ad hoc Muzak missions is to experience original source material, actually play it off the source, not through a secondary medium. So there's a degree of authenticity here, and of course it doesn't really mean anything, but it makes me feel like I'm doing something purposeful. And it's nice music to listen to. Oh, no, not to be entertained by. We have to make sure that's abundantly clear. But there is a streaming service, of course, if you feel differently about this. It can be found on YouTube, and they're logged there as well. So you can, if you hear a piece that you'd like to listen back to, they're there. So we're just winding the tape on. We just turned the tape over. We've got the spool hubs on. And what do we have next? The third and fourth movement. There's a presto and an allegro con brio. This is vk3sl. We've been testing. And just a reminder that there will be test missions tomorrow afternoon, live test missions in one way or another. Hopefully we'll have Mr. J and Mr. JR with us tomorrow, and we'll have a bit of a chat. So that's the plan, that's the grand scheme. So all being well, from 3 o'clock onwards, there will be a non-entertaining meander. All right, I think we're ready to go. Push the button and let's see what happens. vk3sl testing. You've been listening to Beethoven's Symphony Number 7 in A major. And it was with the Philharmonic Orchestra with von Karajan, recorded in the late 50s off a tape. So we're using some source material very kindly bestowed upon us by Mr. F, who is listening. Okay, well, I'm hoping I'm not in the way of the grey liners out there queuing up for DX activity. And I've got the spot here, but I'm flexible. So if you feel as though this is all a bit much and a bit indulgent and stamping on your hallowed turf, please let me know, because I don't want to be in the way. This is just something I do. So we don't have to do it every night. And if you'd rather that the band was available for your needs, please get in touch. You can call me on my email. Actually, the best way is to email me. And there's a blog interface now for these missions, for all of them, so people can make their intentions known. And it's my call sign, vk3sl .blogspot.com. That's not at, but dot. vk3sl, lowercase, .blogspot.com. And there's a link to an email address associated with these missions, which is again just my call sign at Hotmail. Yeah, we stream them now and we log them, and the music is there, and it's just a way to express this collection. Otherwise, well, it's absolutely pointless having it. So it's just a way to sort of move on, and in the scheme of things, it's not that easy for me to parade them anywhere else. So this is a space, and it's usually a fairly vacant space. That's the theory, anyhow. All right, what we have next, a 10-inch LP, a Columbia 10-inch LP from the 50s. This goes way back. It's one of the earlier generation LPs, and it features the music of JSB, played by Dennis Matthews, an English pianist. In fact, he was with the RAF, Mr. Matthews was, in the 40s. And when did he die? About 80-something, 88, I think. Anyhow, he was a musicologist and a pianist, a Bach specialist, and we have an LP here of him playing Bach's Italian Concerto in F major, a work that I really like. So I'm going to go inside and light the fire. This will be on in the background. I'll be monitoring as I go, and we'll have a listen. So without any further ado, J.S. Bach, Italian Concerto in F major. This is VK3SL testing.
transmission vk3sl.
Such a wondrous piece of music. It's the Italian Concerto in F major by Bach and played by Dennis Matthews off an old Columbia. Very scratched. Yeah, they come up much better after a clean. Well, I'll get the Keith Monk record cleaner out and do a comprehensive wash and polish and see if we can bring out some more of that. It's quite an interesting record. I was enjoying it. Setting the fire inside. We've got a lovely fire going, roaring fire in the house, and a bit of Bach in the background. It's great. Now, I'm hoping that grey liners are okay. I'm just putting out that message again in case there's any issues. Please do make contact with me. I'm open ears and can be found at my call sign vk3sl at hotmail.com, or there's a blog spot, blogspot, which is vk3sl.blogspot.com. That's a one-stop shop. There we go. That's my disclaimers. And of course, we're not entertaining. We're just providing historical material for modulated sound tests. That's the scheme of things. vk3sl. Now, to wind up, last night we played a interesting history of 3UZ, a program called A New Beginning, made in 1960. It's particularly interesting, and I think it deserves a second airing. Of course, it is on the log, but let's hear it again. Put to air live. This is vk3sl.
Nice to come home to 3UZ.
This is John McMahon. For some time, we have wondered how we might demonstrate simply and briefly just how we operate at the greater 3UZ, what happens to your advertising, and who presents your cell to our mighty audience. This recording will help you, will provide an opportunity for you to meet our personalities and hear them at work. Instead of using dummy commercials, we have prepared copy which tells something of our operation and our policy. In other words, the greater 3UZ story. UZ is on the air from 5:30 in the morning until midnight, and every activity in those hours is strictly commercial in its presentation to reach the maximum buying audience. The first man on the air each day is clock-happy Tiny Snell, one of the most experienced, brightest, and hardest-hitting announcers in Australia.
I've handled breakfast sessions for over 20 years, and that's quite a record. In that time, I've made a lot of friends. Frankly, I'm a pretty blunt character. I try to be honest with my listeners, and I believe they react to it. I'm sure that basically that's the secret of any success I've had. Look, let's not be modest about this. I'm a salesman. I was trained as a salesman. Everything I handled, from telling the time to selling soap, I present as a salesman. And I'm proud to say I get good sales results. When your product comes onto my schedule, you can rest assured I'll give it all I've got.
The experts say that the key to radio's future success will be bound in the things it does best. In music, news, and sport. The backbone of our new deal for listeners is in the use of the best and brightest music obtainable, presented by radio's most knowledgeable disc jockey. Meet DJ Dick Hemming.
I started as a panel operator. In other words, I learnt my records from the ground up. In the 10 years since I left school, all I've done is study, spin, and comment on top pop discs. So I know what I'm talking about when I say that 3UZ has the best hit library in Melbourne. Because of that, my job is a pushover. I am able to present music to teenagers days ahead of any other local disc jockey. The volume of mail I receive each week is proof that our policy is paying off.
Dick is right, for we spare no expense, particularly with imported discs, to keep the teenagers on their toes. And as Dick says, we have an enormous teenage audience. News is vitally important. 3UZ has one of the best radio news gathering organizations in Australia. Our newsroom, complete with round-the-clock teleprinter service, our radio-controlled news vans, and a staff of top newsmen backed by the vast resources of the Melbourne Age, make it possible to broadcast the news as it happens throughout the day and the night. And this is important. UZ presents 8 complete news bulletins and no fewer than 20 news flashes and on-the-spot news reports each day. Melbourne has no Sunday papers, so at the weekend, 3UZ news vans work round the clock to feed the special Sunday news services and magazine news beats. This keeps listeners up to the minute by the minute. Head of this successful organization is news editor Tom Jones.
Here is the news read by Tom Jones. As a counter to TV, 3UZ will introduce a new streamlined form of broadcast presentation from March the 30th. This was announced by 3UZ's General Manager, Mr. Lewis Bennett, this week. The new format will include a friendly style of announcing, frequent time calls, comprehensive weather reports, additional news services, early morning rock and roll hit parades, and new drama features. Mr. Bennett said experts had devised the new format after 2 years' study of listener trends. The latest technical equipment would be installed to ensure the highest standard of listener reception. Program manager John McMahon will school announcers in an entirely new style, placing emphasis on friendliness and knowledge of recorded music and artists. Each 3UZ announcer will be a disc jockey and individual personality. 3UZ will foster personalities. And that was the news read by Tom Jones.
News flashes come from all sources and are broadcast by 3UZ immediately on receipt. News reports are on-the-spot commentaries. Brief interviews with victims and eyewitnesses are broadcast direct from the news van by shortwave or recorded on tape and returned to the studio. When news is hot, these reports are progressively followed up every 10 minutes or so to keep the audience informed of developments and to hold listeners to the station. Here is an actual example handled by the 3UZ News Department.
Just after 7 o'clock this morning at D24 Russell Street Police Headquarters, we have a report that a Mrs. Kisman has rung from 168 Haldane Street, Beaumaris. The phoned report says simply and dramatically, "I have murdered my 2 children." Dr. Wilson from Beaumaris is on the scene at this moment shortly after 7 o'clock and reports back to Russell Street Police Headquarters that 1 child is dead, but the other is still living.
10 minutes later, 3UZ News roundsman John Worthy broadcast this.
A usually orderly Sunday morning has been thrust into turmoil. I have just witnessed the arrest of a young married woman alleged to have murdered her 7-year-old daughter and mortally wounded her few-months-old son. Detective Timmons from the Homicide Squad has taken her to Russell Street Police Headquarters for questioning. 3 police cars on the street give it a definite note of authority to this luxurious Bayside area. A few neighbors have wandered to their front gates, surveying the activity. Earlier, these people told me that the young mother involved in the tragedy was one of the quietest and most lovable persons that they had ever met. The murder house itself is of a very neat and contemporary design. The color scheming is of green and pastel pink. The garden exceptionally well cared for. And I seem to notice a few kiddies' toys lying around the side of the house. The telephone is connected, for I do understand that a local doctor was called in. The husband rang from the home. This probably accounts for the fact that neighbors heard no sound out of the ordinary. The first they knew about it was the blast of police sirens breaking through the early morning quiet.
This is a test transmission.
At this stage, I have been requested by police not to enter the house. The police photographer is engaged, photographing both the interior and the exterior of the dwelling. Senior Constable Mackay of the Wireless Patrol and Senior Constable Levere of the CIB are in charge of investigations.
30 minutes later came this report.
We have just received a message to the effect that doctors are at this moment fighting for the life of the second child at the Children's Hospital.
That was only one of the many dramatic stories told by the 3UZ News Department every day of every week. The 3UZ reputation for first in sport has been built by Australia's best sporting team: Fred Tupper, Bert Bryant, John Russell, George Andrew, Ted Rippon, John Bromwich, and Rolly Barley. Fred Tupper is sporting editor, and here he is to tell his own story.
At 3UZ, sport is a daily affair because it's our policy to cover every major event. Wherever there is a public demand for sporting service, we meet it fully. You may not know that 3UZ is the only station in Victoria broadcasting descriptions of all metropolitan and country race meetings.
Here, then, is 3UZ's Bert Bryant, Australia's greatest racecaster, calling the final stages of the 1957 Melbourne Cup.
2.5 furlongs to go towards the members' stand, where Straight Draw's gone to the front from Gallen Lee. Prince Darius coming out from the rails, finishing well, followed by Allura. Monte Carlo's beaten in Baron Boissier. Pandy Sun coming from a long way back. Straight Draw in front. Prince Darius going after Straight Draw with 3/4 of a furlong to go. Straight Draw in front, Prince Darius coming at it, and here's Pandy Sun with a belated effort. It's Straight Draw just in front of Prince Darius, and Straight Draw is going to win the cup. Straight Draw first by a half length to Prince Darius. Third was Pandy Sun. Then came...
In the past 12 months, our racecasters, Bert Brandt and John Russell, have travelled more than 60,000 miles to cover 179 race meetings and 32 night trots. Their names are a byword to listeners throughout all southern states. Bookmakers use our service direct in New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania. During the football season, George Andrew and Ted Rippon cover the principal league game each Saturday and night football throughout the week. To supplement this service, 3UZ is the only station providing progress scores and highlights direct from all other grounds. Professional and amateur tennis, handled by John Bromwich, Tom Warhurst and Rolly Barley, is rebroadcast in every state in the Commonwealth, as are athletics, swimming and cycling from championship venues. I handle boxing and wrestling from the stadium. Only 2 stations in Melbourne have these rights. Yes, I'm mighty proud of the sporting department.
The experience gained by 3UZ as headquarters for the Federation's national coverage of the Olympic Games makes it the ideal vehicle for your sporting placements. At this moment, 3UZ has one of the best announcing teams in its 35 years of broadcasting. The perfect blend of mature experience with the enthusiasm of conscientious young men. You've met Tiny Snell, Dick Hemming, Tom Jones, John Worthy and Fred Tupper. Now you should meet our chief announcer, Bob Cornish. 26 years of age, 10 years of solid experience in all departments of broadcasting in the city and country, and one of radio's future greats.
There is nothing haphazard about 3UZ announcers' approach to work. At a weekly meeting, all new copy to come into our schedule is tabled, bugs are ironed out, and the sales department report on results of special commercials. Styles of microphone selling are rehearsed and discussed, and these meetings allow an expression of thought on the commercial approach, which in my experience is quite unique. I'd like you to meet some of our air salesmen. You'll like their voices and their drive. Recently, we brought a talented and forthright young man from Tasmania. His name is Don Rainsford.
3UZ is beating competition in Melbourne by sheer determination to do better in every department than any other station. It has taken time and a turnover of staff, but today the 3UZ team and the 3UZ service carry a seal of efficiency geared for only one purpose: to successfully sell your merchandise in a large and loyal buying market. With a flexible policy capable of adjustment to meet changing conditions and listener trends, the greater 3UZ, with its smooth organisation, vital programs and enthusiastic air salesmen, use its full 5,000 watts aerial power to speed your message over Victoria with an intensity that must get results. In Melbourne, use 3UZ, for 3UZ packs a mighty punch.
That hard-hitting announcement was made by Don Rainsford. And now let me introduce Les Heil.
Don't change from a winning formula. Radio, with its years of specialization in person-to-person selling, has proved its power of sellability at fractional cost. Compare the cost per impact and the results for investment with those of other media. Radio must win, hands down, for radio is the most economical buy in the advertising field. True, it must be used intelligently, and that means in Melbourne that your placement must, for your product's sake, be on the greater 3UZ. 3UZ packs a mighty punch.
That announcement was read by Les Heil. One of the smoothest and best salesmen in our team is Bill Ackfield.
Let me make 3 suggestions. Firstly, call in 3UZ for discussion before you finalize your radio schedules. Immediately, the Brains Trust, a group of broadcasting's highest paid and most knowledgeable executives, will be placed at your disposal to make your planning work. Secondly, use the 3UZ recording department for your recorded commercials. 4 studios and 2 production rooms with the most modern equipment in Australia are available on call at competitive rates. Thirdly, place your campaign in Melbourne's most enthusiastic station. Every placement becomes a complete promotion, and maximum results are a foregone conclusion. Yes, indeed, 3UZ packs a mighty punch.
That was Bill Ackfield. Now let me introduce Graham Linden. 3UZ is known for the strength of its publicity. The promotion of its own service and the backing of its clients' programs have the same aggressive character, the same enthusiasm that gets results. The whole of 3UZ's publicity policy is planned with one objective: to increase the size of its buying audience.
You have heard some of our frontmen. Their success would not be possible without the enterprise and initiative of the departmental executives, the brains behind the men with the guns.
Program Manager John McMahon, Australia's Mr. Show Business, with a lifetime of experience feeling the public's entertainment pulse.
Sales Manager Bill Holmes, one of the most knowledgeable and capable operators in the business.
Studio and Recording Manager Clive Waters, a top detail man, combining all the ingredients which make smooth production of our studio operation.
Publicity Manager Bill Dodd, brilliant promotions man, bringing all the magic of his theatre and movie background to the selling of 3UZ and its clients' programs.
Studio Supervisor Lloyd Lawson, the man who coordinates on the spot the presentation of programs and commercials.
Continuity Manager Dick McGree, a great writer with a selling brain.
Chief Engineer Bill Vagona, the man who made the miracles we perform technically possible.
And now I introduce the head of 3UZ, General Manager Lewis Bennett.
By now you'll have guessed the reason we made this recording. It wasn't intended to entertain you. It was intended to demonstrate to you what we're capable of doing at 3UZ. It wasn't possible to be modest, because the whole of our history has been bound up in an investment in the best available executives, staff, programs, and technical facilities. The experiment has been costly, but as a virile, effective specialty selling organization, we've had incredible results. I know that this recording will cement a better understanding and bring us closer together. And believe me, we'll back it up. All our services, studios, recording rooms, research and planning departments are available to you on call. We'll do anything to make radio easier to buy. And now all my colleagues at the Greater 3UZ join me in thanking you for the time you've spent at this meeting.
Nice to come home to 3UZ.
This is vk3sl. Well, that is quite an amazing snapshot of a radio history there, the 3UZ story, and we'll be looking for interesting material like that to add perspective to these test transmissions on 160 metres, narrowband FM. Just a word that I think there'll be more missions tonight on 147.475 Channel D. And Mr. L will be hopefully putting together something which reflects his amazing output of YT YouTube uploads in recent times. He is an archivist and historian par excellence, and yes, certainly commend them. All right then, well, without any further ado, I will take my leave, and hopefully we have something live tomorrow afternoon from 3 p.m. Sunday afternoon missions. vk3sl. Until next time.
This is a test transmission from vk3sl.